Welcome, and thank you for tuning in. You're listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis. Most of us, as we pay attention to our financial currency and the upcoming administration, wonder if anything's ever going to change, whether or not our money's going to actually increase in value, whether or not we're going to have the purchasing power we had 30 or 40 years ago, or we're going to have anything at all. Seems the banks are all co-conspiring to work against us. Joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program today is author of the book. He's going to be joining us today talking about world banking and world fraud. This is someone who has extensive experience as he stepped up against HSBC to talk about the international bank where he had worked, where he was threatened, recreates conversations with coworkers and management. Tensions rise. He won't back down nor look the other way. We're going to discover how large sums of money were hidden within accounts. The bank's own internal computer system seemed to be designed to allow the fraud to happen. Why was this able to happen, and what is the motivation behind it? That's what we're going to find out. Our guest today, John Cruz. John, thank you for joining us here on the program today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Now, tell us how you got all started in the banking profession. This seems like something that you really loved doing until you started finding out the real truth about what was going on behind closed doors.
Well, I started many years ago back with credit unions. Credit unions are a family operation, very customer-oriented, a lot more small business, which is what we need today.
Now, tell us how this all started for you.
Well, I started out of college and got in the banking world and grew the credit unions for years and became very successful at it. And just one day, HSBC Bank decided they wanted to get in our area and get business and pay good money, which the one thing that credit unions don't do is they don't pay great money to management. So it goes back to their shareholders, which are their customers. So I went to HSBC Bank to work, and that's when everything started.
Now, what specifically happened that really began to raise your eyes and say, hey, you know, what's going on here, and how come I'm having to buy into this?
Well, I started looking into accounts after training. In my first day, I started training accounts that had large sums of money being transferred in and out of it. What the explanations of what the money was to be used for, where the money was coming from, where it was going, was very vague. You would just see transfer from, transfer to. Accounts were labeled as unidentified. For an account to be labeled as unidentified, which actually is a checking account, which is a sub-account under other checking accounts, which is a sub-account under attorney escrow accounts. It just got very suspicious. So I started looking into more, which was my job. I was a vice president, business relations, and my job was to look into these accounts and make sure the money was flowing, where it was coming from, where it was going, what customers were doing with money, what customers were doing with their loans, and everything I found was fraudulent.
Now, what exactly constitutes bank fraud here in this conversation?
Bank fraud is the account holders didn't exist in a lot of scenarios. Scenarios are the accounts which were being used were using customers' identities based off their attorney's escrow accounts, which the attorneys had all their information to open up escrow accounts from. The bank would open sub-escrow accounts so the customers couldn't see it. An example is on May 1st, the bank would open an account under your name. They would have other accounts and other customers, corporations all around the world open up that people didn't know these things were open to transfer money all around the world. This was for drugs, terrorists, everything. And you would go to find a company it's supposed to exist. It's based in New York somewhere, but there's another company it has over in another state, another country somewhere. You go to meet with the owners, and the business has been out of business for years. And they just reopened the corporation. And they just transfer money through the corporation, through individual's name, so they get it to the final destination, leave it open for 30 days, transfer a few $100 billion, trillion, and close the account after the transfers are done, the day before it was opened.
You know, that seems awfully suspicious, and you kind of wonder, what are they doing this for in the first place?
This is to transfer money around the world. This is to transfer money for illegal activities. This is to transfer money so the rich can get richer, the ones that are doing illegal stuff can get richer. And to trace it is almost impossible unless you're in the middle of the system. Because the bank does not fill out any suspicious reports, suspicious activity reports. The bank is owned by these individuals doing these illegal activities, and the bank pays for government officials for their campaigns, contributions, and they make it look like it's coming from everyday individuals by using their identity also. So they can pay $1 billion to a campaign to make somebody become a president, a congressman in a state, and do whatever they want. Because when you go to a government official and say, you know something, let's just overlook this, I'll give $100 million to your campaign. It gets overlooked.
So it sounds like a giant slush fund is just being created out of thin air, and they're taking this money to do whatever they want to do then.
Do whatever they want and then some. It's just so manipulated, so corrupt. It's crazy. And I talk about this in my book. I talk about this in my actual live recordings of CD. These are actual live voice recordings of government officials, law enforcement, executives, employees, goes on. And all on my website, worldbankingworldfraud.com, I have the CD up there. I have the book up there. People can listen to everything. I mean, one person asked me one time, says, do you have any proof this really exists? I says, why don't you just listen to them? What do you mean? I have their actual voices. Here you go. Listen to it. Here they are, talking about all this and doing nothing.
Now, you have to wonder if, there's any such thing as an honest bank this day and age. What are your experiences with that?
When it comes to the honest banks, the small banks, the non-international banks, there's honesty there. Because if you haven't noticed, too big to fail is just total corruption. They don't fail, nobody goes to jail, nothing happens to anybody. But you take the little bank in town, and you take a manager, and let's say a manager does a crime, $20,000, $30,000. You read about it all the time. They go into jail. But too big to fail? It's just too big, period. They need to be taken apart. They need to be made into a smaller bank. They need to be monitored heavily, and they should not be allowed to give any campaign contributions to any congressman. They should not be able to do any money lobbying whatsoever. They need to be monitored very strictly.
Now, it's interesting because we all hear about this constantly, but then it seems like nobody ever is being held accountable. How does any of that change?
Well, that's why you need to have laws that they can't be too big to fail. They always use that term, too big to fail, so they can stay open, so they can still continue their crimes. All these banks that are too big to fail, they've been committing these crimes over and over, and all they're doing is paying, they call it a fine, but when I was in HSBC, I have voice recordings of executives and law enforcement. This is the cost of doing business. This is what we pay the government out of the money we earn, and this is how we stay open. It's the cost of doing business. It's not a fine.
Now, this has really been a problem for you as you began to start unraveling a lot of the information that you've been sharing with the public about the bank's fraudulent tactics. Tell us what has actually happened, how your life has actually changed as a result of this.
Well, I am no longer doing banking. Nobody wants nothing to do with a whistleblower when they blow the whistle on a bank. That's a big question mark when you say a statement like that. Nobody wants you as a whistleblower because they're afraid that you're going to blow the whistle on them because there's illegal activity going on everywhere. And that's where I stand with that. But now I work, I do some work, I make a living, I sell my book, selling my CD, and I'm pushing and pushing more and more to make this more revealing to the public. I mean, one day you could wake up and say, oh my God, my name just transferred $50 million last month, and now I have the IRS looking for tax money on me because there are no taxes paid on this money. The American people do not get any benefit whatsoever. It's all money laundering. It's for drugs and terrorists, and you could go to jail for using HSBC Bank or HSBC having your identity and using it themselves, because they get your identity and all your information from attorneys, from credit cards, from outside sources. And you sign documents to open up accounts. And then they have the authority to open up all the accounts they want on you and transfer money in your name. You know you don't know about it, and say, we didn't do it. Client must have did it. You did it.
You know, it just seems so interesting that when you really try to fly straight with something like this, and everybody just wants to step back and say, you know, you just need to be quiet about this. Nobody needs to worry about what's going on here. But how does it really affect the American public?
Well, many different areas it affects. One, financial stability within our own country, within your own household. Two, you're a target. You're a target for your identity to be used. Three, our government officials are not honest. They're not working for us. I mean, would you vote for a government official that gets paid money by terrorists, do corporate fraud, do illegal activities, that's in office? I don't know why anybody would. These people are all paid off. So, not benefits anywhere there. We're not getting the laws we need to control this stuff, and we never will if we continue to vote these people in. Other areas, all the drugs and everything floating through the system and everything, it's all money going through the system. There's no tax revenue for us. I mean, $200 trillion of money laundering through HSBC Bank. If that was a 10% fine, we would not have a national deficit. It would be gone. We would not have no debt whatsoever if all this money was reported and taxes were paid on it.
Now, what I was surprised to hear, and this is something that I found, I guess on the internet, WND, is that you were talking about both American Express and PayPal seem to be involved in something like this here. Tell us about that, because, I mean, there are a lot of people that really enjoy using the convenience of PayPal, especially for their businesses. What's going on there?
Well, as far as PayPal, American Express, I get a lot of individuals emailing me situations with them where they got a W-2 for $250,000, $2 million, $10 million, and they've never had an account with PayPal, American Express. But there's money going through the system, and these are the individuals that are caught up in a computer error, a glitch that happens, that where now they're being asked to pay the tax revenue on that money. Because that money is in your name. You transferred it. You made money off it. You made $250 million, $2 million, whatever it is. The IRS comes after you for having an account open. But meanwhile, the bank is the one who opened the account, transferred the money, got all the benefits of the money, did whatever they needed, and paid no tax. But now they want you to pay the tax, but you never had access to the money. And you can also see videos online, on YouTube, and you can actually see the actual transactions. I used to get accounts, and I had thousands upon thousands of accounts where it shows PayPal. Transfer PayPal, transfer 20,000, 20,000, 20,000, 20,000, 20,000. In one day, you have millions of dollars, all even figures to all these accounts. And all of a sudden, transfer out a large sum. Where'd it go? I don't know. Could have went to American Express. Could have went to an account in Brazil. Could have went to an account in Russia. Don't know where the money went. Just says transfer from the account. And then the account gets closed 30 days after all the transactions done, the day before it's open, to wipe out all the transactions in the account so you can't see it. But all these transactions are also going through the Federal Clearinghouse, the Federal Reserve. How does this happen?
You know, it seems so astounding that in a day and age where it seems the law goes after common citizens for some of the most ridiculous things, that these people here doing the big kind of damage don't really get held accountable. How is this even possible?
This is where you talk about money lobbying. You lobby for campaigns. You lobby for our government to get paid to do certain things. So when you have a campaign and you say, oh, I'll contribute you $50 million to your campaign, they contributed money. Congress says, oh, too big to fail. Let's just impose a fine. So the bank makes $23 billion in profit. Bank takes the 10% out. They paid a $2 billion fine and pays out other little things here and there, campaign contributions, this is what they call it now. We're going to have the bank create new systems to monitor and control money laundering. And all they're doing is creating new systems to hide the money laundering, not prevent it. So that's their 10% margin. And I have voice recordings of senior officials, HSBC, that state all this. Government officials that state all this. I'm like, how blatant can you be? I mean, the Congress and all recognized me as a whistleblower against HSBC in the settlement with HSBC. The U.S. Attorney's Office in Eastern District of New York recognized me. Very puzzling why I have not even seen anything as a whistleblower.
Now, do you see anything moving in the direction where people are going to start being held accountable here? Or is this just going to be something that goes on and on?
Well, in our day and age where these computer systems are being hacked and everything, more and more people are being held accountable. It's happening more and more every day.
And what exactly happens once they do?
They can be thrown in jail. They can have their assets gone. I mean, picture, and I've seen this happen already, husband and wife, they put away $50,000, $100,000 for their son and daughter's college. Next thing you know, get a letter from the IRS auditing you. Got a record of $2 million being transferred here, not reported in income tax through PayPal, done by the bank, but they don't know this yet. And we are looking for our tax revenue with fines and penalties and all. You owe the IRS $750,000, $2 million, and they seize all your assets. They take all your cash. You take everything from you. Next thing you know, you're poor. You're broke. Got to hire an attorney. You don't have any money because they just took it. What do? It's very, very emotional distress. People commit suicide. And the people above don't care. The bank doesn't care. They don't care about us. I don't even know why people even bank with these banks. It's just totally asinine. I don't know. Why would we vote for these politicians that are in office destroying our world?
You know, now it's always, I think, to me, something that's intriguing when you see the American public that seems to know what the problem is. They cite what the problem is, but it doesn't seem like the problem ever goes away. It's sort of like, yeah, well, what are you going to do about it?
Because they're caught up in the system of believing. I mean, when a politician gets up and he says, I'm going to do this for you, I'm going to do this for you, I'm going to do this for you. You know, it's like, yeah, she's great, oh my God, she's so great, she's going to do all this for her. But it comes down to the real things that are going to happen. Read between the lines, people. They're only saying things to get your vote. I'll say whatever it is to get your vote so I can become a big person in the picture, so I can do whatever I want. Because once I'm in, there's no stopping me. Why would you want that? Look at their past records. It's just in government. It's just disgusting. And how they stay in, I don't know. They don't belong there.
Now, tell us, how does the federal law deal with all this, or does it?
The federal law? Wow, the federal laws are written by these individuals, so they're very well protected. So how can someone, government official, go around and do something to somebody and not get any charges to them? How can somebody go out and break laws and not be charged? This is what happens when you have the people in power and control. I mean, perfect example, Obamacare was pushed down the American population's throat. And if we don't have health care now, we have to pay fines of hundreds of dollars every year to the government. But meanwhile, our senior executives in the insurance world all gave themselves hundreds of millions of dollars of raises. Why didn't the people of America vote on this? Why didn't the people of America get the chance to vote to say, hey, if we are forced to have health care, we all agree to have health care. Why isn't health care then executives not making any more money than the President of the United States? I mean, out of any executive should be making $60, $80, $150 million a year, when the President of the United States only makes $400,000 a year. If that's not total corruption, then I guess it's a free-for-all for everybody.
Now, do we see an end in sight in this where actually they will find themselves being regulated, held accountable, and not being able to continue this, or is this just going to keep going as business as usual?
Not as long as they kept in power. We need somebody in office who's outspoken. We need somebody who's office that takes control and does for the people and not for the government itself. I mean, my whole life I lived American. I've never seen it so bad in my life between racism and other countries hating us around the world, and there's such tension with war and everything. I mean, it's all governments. It's not the people. It's the governments everywhere. I mean, you could go to Russia and be with people there and have a great time with them, but then our governments can't even get along. If you're a man of power, you should be sitting here saying, you know something, we shouldn't be sitting here designing how to make more nuclear weapons. We should be designing systems to make sure nobody has nuclear weapons. You know, make sure they're gone and make sure we can all be friends and get along. Not be looking at how to destroy this world, but how to find a new world. It's all about money, everything.
Now, what do you suggest that people can do to be tougher on banking procedures these days?
Elect people in office that will move forward. Elect people who, a person that's running for office should be under oath of what they're going to do for the people. And if they don't do what they say they're going to do, they should automatically be prosecuted for purging themselves to the people. And then they would have to do what they say they're going to do. And before they do it, they have to have a complete plan open to the public. Not have a plan to say, oh, I'm going to do A, B, and C, but you can't see my plans until I implement them. I mean, it's the same scenario with these states going out and getting these other countries to come in and build highways and having contracts with these other countries or businesses from other countries to build these highways, but the American people can't see it, and the next thing you know is they've got a $100 billion tax bill to pay. But we never seen this. So why was it approved? By one or two people in office? What did they benefit from this? We didn't. It's crazy.
Now, tell us a website people can go to find out how they can get your book and, other information such as that.
Well, my book and the actual live voice recordings, some of them, are online at worldbankingworldfraud.com.
Mm-hmm. Now,
the book is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Mm-hmm. It's worldbankingworldfraud.com, and they can see everything.
Mm-hmm. Now, with all the work and time and attention that you've put to this, and certainly, the public outcry to make people accountable, especially in the banking industry, do you see anything changing for the better?
I'm just hoping. I don't see anything changing. I see a financial crisis coming. I think there's going to be a war coming. It's not going to be pretty. It's just very, very scary. With this whole immigration problem, with this whole other countries' problems. There's a lot of problems out there, and we are just sitting back and letting it happen and not taking control.
It just seems so astounding. It almost seems like the problem is so big that each individual feels, well, it's too big for me to deal with, so I'm just going to go ahead and look the other way. But it really takes all of us coming together to be able to make these changes that will make it possible. Isn't that true? That is true.
Too big to fail is a total failure awaiting to happen.
Well, John, Exactly. Now, John, I want to thank you so much for joining us here on the program today, and I want you one more time, if you could, give out your website where people can discover more.
worldbankingworldfraud.com. You can read the book there. You can order the CD and the book. You can read articles, worldbankingworldfraud.com. Also on Facebook. I also have a TV commercial out there on Facebook. Twitter. Look at the commercial. There's more commercials coming, going around the world with it.
Well, very good. Thank you so much for joining us here on the program today.
Thank you. You have a great day.
We want to thank you, the listeners out there, for joining us. You can also discover more by visiting us at beyond50radio.com. That is the number 50. We encourage you to sign up for our weekly e-newsletter. That way you can stay up to date on upcoming shows and what's going on in the Beyond 50 community. I'm Daniel Davis. Thank you for tuning in. This is the Beyond 50 radio program. And remember, live your day past halfway.